Hello. It has been quite a long time, hasn't it? Um, well, welcome back. So as you probably saw in my YouTube post, a lot's been going on. My grandmother died, and uh, somewhere around September? Probably, no. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. I think around August or September, somewhere around there. But, yeah, it's been a lot. And then not long after, I was diagnosed with a GERD, GERD. It's, basically a thing that affects my throat, and for a while it sometimes even affected like breathing and ability to speak as well. And yeah, but biggest thing to solve it, I've got a pill that I take, but biggest thing is just losing weight. So I was honestly needed a while just to focus on myself and losing weight and all the things I need. What's this, by the way? Okay. But anyways, I Jesus, I am so nervous. It's been so freaking long that it feels kind of wild. Not just from YouTube, actually. Because I knew I always wanted to eventually come back to YouTube, I actually haven't played Equestria more since I stopped recording, because I was like, well, eventually when I come back, at least I'll have a lot of new nations that I can play. So, whatever. So, recommend in the comment what nation you want me to play, since that's been updated since the last time I've been on YouTube. I already have the one we're going to be playing today, as you can see by the title. But yeah, we're gonna be getting into it, back to my old swing of things. It's been a long time. This has been my biggest break from YouTube yet, ever. I've had some long ones before, but none at the length of this. It'll be good to be back. So yeah. Eventually I'll probably have more personal stuff I'll want to talk about within the future, about other stuff that's gone on, but that's kind of the basics of this situation I'd want to get into at this point. But yeah. But I thought it would only be good, since the last nation we played, which, sorry, that series isn't going to be finished. In fact, like, anytime, like, because of all that happening and so much stuff going on, I don't even have those save files anymore. Also, sadly to say, I do still have the save file for the suzerain playthrough, so I can continue it if you guys want, but I did eventually go back and just play suzerain on my own time. Not in the same path. I didn't take the same goals that I did on my original run, but I did do another suzerain run in my own time, so I have already played through the DLC completely. I did hold on for it for quite a while, but eventually I was like, I just can't. I really want to see how it goes. So I eventually did go back and play it. So I can't, up to you guys. If you guys want me to see me play through and continue that save file, I can, but I have already played through the rest of Suzerain, so I won't be completely blind like I was for the series before. But anyways, now that we've got the sort of announcement stuff done and kind of a recap of the situation, any questions you guys have, leave them in the comments. I will talk about whatever and bring it up. Hopefully I can get around to anything that was missed that I mentioned here, and I can bring it up in a future video or talk about it in the comments. So yeah, that should be about everything. But to start, let's see this. The content highlights. The King of Abyssinia is the old home of the Abyssinian race, talking and sapient cats who stand upright. It prospered for almost a century after the Klawundik restoration, managing to partially industrialize thanks to Wingbardian aid. But like in many other places in Zebrica, the Storm King's invasion devastated the country. Now its king is too melancholic to rule effectively. Relations with Wingbardi have become strained. Claimants to the throne plot in the shadows, and the slaves are getting restless. Abyssinia survived the first millennium, but will it survive the second one? I'm also just, because it's been so long I've recorded, I'm just going to be checking my audio input, my Desktop audio, making sure it's all recording and nothing's messing up. We'll be doing that quite a bit for these first videos, just because it's been so long and I'm making sure I'm not forgetting anything or messing anything up. Alright, here we go. It's been a long time. Hello? There we go. The King of Abyssinia is the old home. Okay, this is the same. Okay, that's the same description. Okay. Alright. Select country. We will be playing the King of Abyssinia for the second time, but this time, just to make sure I don't still have that set, reset a whole bunch of times. And yeah, this time, as always, I like to play without historical AI because I like chaos. So yeah. Nope. No. Get back to the nation. Alright. And here we go. Wow. Oh, it's been so long since I've, like... I also expect me to be a little rusty. I have played Hoi 4 since I stopped recording, but not as much as I used to, and definitely no Equestria War. So if I'm a little rustier, and I was already, don't get me wrong, I'm not a... If you're looking for extreme talent for Hoi 4, don't come to my videos. I'm here for the story, the lore, reading all the events, and mediocre at best gameplay. So that's a warning to ya. Eventually, maybe I'll get better, but if anything, I might be rustier than before, because it's been quite a while since I've gotten really into Hoi 4, since the biggest reason I got into it before was, well, YouTube. I mean, I was already, even before that was my most played game, but I got way further into it when I was doing YouTube, and without doing that, it kind of got me less into it for a while. But northwestern Zebrica. Northwestern Zebrica is a long coastline stretching from the southernmost tip of the Arabian Peninsula to the northernmost point of Abyssinia. The northern half of this coast is arid, as the seas bring little rain and the hot, dry winds blow frequently from the Zebharan Desert. Oh, okay, I want that to be reopened in a moment, but I'm actually gonna I'm gonna turn down a little. I'll be messing around with that, trying to figure out exactly where I want it for a while. It's been a while, so I don't really have my settings the same. Zoom. Okay, Saudi Arabia is the largest nation in the region, or it was until civil war tore it asunder into 5 factions. The horses of Saudi Arabia were once hegemons of the entire West, but centuries of decadence have seen their empire crumble. Northeast of Saudi Arabia lie Asturia and Anzarak, nations of warlike donkeys, while cats inhabit the mountainous kingdom of Abyssinia. Mare Egypt is populated by ponies, cousins of Equestrians, as is the area of Mandalusia, which is partitioned between the Abyssinia and Mare Egypt. South of the donkeys is the emirate of Yemen, which broke off from Saudi Arabia many years ago. Half of the region avoided the Storm King's fury, while the other half was plundered by him. While Saudi Arabia was still united, its modern and powerful army was able to match the Storm King's host, and they protected the donkeys, who were still in their sphere of influence. Abyssinia, Mare Egypt, and Yemen were not so lucky. The Storm King wreaked havoc in their lands, taking everything that was worth taking and salvaging the rest. Abyssinia in particular suffered greatly, as they proudly attempted to resist the Storm King, but to no avail. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. The Storm King has since perished, and now would have been the perfect time for Saudi Arabia to reassert its dominance. Alas, internal unrest reached a boiling point, and the once powerful and wealthy nation is now tearing itself apart. The donkeys are now left without a protector, but are now also free to pursue their own foreign policy. Yemen, Abyssinia, and Mare Egypt must focus on rebuilding what was destroyed, but all three of them have poor relations with their neighbors. The Griffonian kingdom of Wingbardi has a small holding in Abyssinia and may seek to expand its influence in the region. And after Saudi Arabia reunites, the mighty giant will awaken and look outwards. If the other countries in the region remain weak and divided, they will be able to do nothing to stop them. As her final act before her death, Beast granted us the gift of sapience, the 3 scriptures, 1:38. While most cat species around the world are little more than animals, one species on the Abyssinian Peninsula is fully sapient. Unlike their less intelligent relatives, they stand on 2 legs and are capable of speech. They founded some of the oldest civilizations in the world, almost 3,000 years ago, but little is known about this long-forgotten age. The modern kingdom of Abyssinia can trace its origins to its legendary formation in 107 BLB by the Clawmaic dynasty, which still reigns in the present day, being one of the oldest royal dynasties in the world. However, their rule was not continuous, as in 750 ALB, the dynasty was deposed by their rivals in the Katwi dynasty. At that time, Abyssinia had been long in decline before it became the submissive tributary under Saudi Arabia. The Katwi dynasty promised a revival, but instead a dark age began as nobility asserted their power. This time stagnation ended in 901 ALB, thanks to the Clawmaic restoration, where Queen Meldra the second seized the throne, stopped paying tribute to Saudi Arabia, and introduced modernization reforms. Thus began a golden age, as the kingdom prospered from extensive trade with overseas nations. However, this led to a rivalry with the neighboring kingdom of Mare Egypt, which escalated into a conflict over the disputed territory of Andalusia in 988 ALB. It had historically been owned by Abyssinia, but was populated almost entirely by ponies who yearned to declare independence. The conflict became a stalemate, with Andalusia divided between the two kingdoms. In addition, modernization was only possible with generous support by the king of Wingbardi, which was given the island of Persia as a concession. Last but not least, Queen Muad'Dibla II outlawing of feline slavery did not explicitly forbid slavery of other races, and thus non-cat slaves became a vital part of the Abyssinian economy. After his coronation, King Gomez was ready to deal with these problems and ensure the continuation of the Golden Age. Unfortunately, it swiftly ended with the arrival of the Storm King. He conquered all of Abyssinia despite fierce resistance, sacking and burning cities. After capturing Panthera, he left the royal family unharmed but emptied the treasury, which meant the kingdom could no longer afford to import food. In the meantime, Wingbardi seized the port of Katrin to secure their interests. And the slave unrest grew to critical levels. All this pressure was too much for the king to handle, and he is now sunk into melancholy. This situation is chaotic and desperate, and there is a conspiracy brewing in the shadows. Can the venerable Clawmaic dynasty, vulnerable works too, handle the crisis, or will its bloodline finally be extinguished? Dun dun dun! Alright. So, we are the cats. The Abyssinian race. Bipedal by nature, these feline creatures have developed differently from their more feral kin, and have grown sapient as a result. Abyssinian cats are renowned for their wit and penchant for trading. However, their historical institutions of the enslavement of non-cat creatures has sullied their reputation abroad. They are seen as lazy, two-faced schemers. Like other cats, they are obligate carnivores and tend to avoid sweet food and milk, despite the fact we feed them milk in real life, which they shouldn't eat. Somehow, a sizable portion of the population is suffering from a lack of access to basic needs. They're looked down upon by the rest of society as they beg, do work that is seen as servile or humiliating, and commit crimes. Yet it is not their own fault that they suffer, and they wish for nothing more than a normal life. We have modest illiteracy. Despite continued efforts, about half of the populace in this country remains illiterate, with many being unable to attain any education. The foundation for this education of the entire population exists and simply needs to be expanded upon. We are industrializing society. The society is experiencing an industrial revolution. New machines are imported from abroad and sometimes even manufactured domestically, allowing for far more effective production of goods. A more extensive bureaucracy and a principle of meritocracy improve governance, economy, and healthcare, allowing the population to grow rapidly. With less workers needed on farms, many are migrating to cities looking for work in the newly established factories. While some protest these radical changes, they can only slow down the process. We have a substantial science base. Scholars in the country have embraced the equestrian scientific revolution, abandoning the ways of the past. However, they face such much obscurantism or even outright hostility from the wider society. Not only that, but they also lack resources and personnel to conduct any large-scale research. I see. Now, let's see what cities that we have to look at. So we have our capital and one other, looks like. The Royal Catatale. Haha. Traditionally, by the way, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of cat puns. Just a feeling. Traditionally, the Kingdom of Abyssinia has had a mobile, itinerant capital as the royal court moved across the kingdom to govern it more effectively. As such, there was no official capital city for many centuries. This changed after the Clawomenic restoration, as Queen Adora II decided to establish a permanent capital city in 901 ALB to modernize and centralize her realm. She started the construction of a grand royal palace in a city called Panthera. It is unclear when Panthera was founded, as it originated a small market town on the Panther River. It was chosen as a capital due to its relatively central location and proximity to both the coastline and the trade routes that crossed the desert to the Arabian Sea. It expanded rapidly during Queen Maeodora's reign, and was practically rebuilt from the ground up as the first truly modern city in all of Abyssinia, with the help of Wingardian companies. As such, its streets are well lit and carefully planned. Its buildings are tall, and there's even some plumbing. Countless irrigation channels were dug around the city to create pastures for cattle, so that it would be enough food for every cat. However, the city grew and attracted countless artisans, shopkeepers, and slaves. Its outskirts turned into crowded slums with traditional circular mud huts. The city is strictly divided into neighborhoods, Sefer, which are clearly divided by wealth. Then aristocrat and bureaucrat neighborhoods appearing completely different from working-class ones. The royal palace eventually became famous for all the wealth stored in its treasury. This unsurprisingly attracted the attention of a certain Yeti, known as the Storm King, who invaded Abyssinia. Panthera was the last bastion of resistance to fall, and many buildings were burned down during the attack. The cats had no counter to the Yeti's airships, however, and King Gomez decided to surrender to save his subjects from further suffering. The Storm King then completely emptied the royal treasury and promptly left, leaving behind a devastated capital city. Rebuilding efforts have already begun, and many cats are picking up the pieces on their own, as the government remains paralyzed. Though the city remains calm, there are clear signs of anxiety and discontent in the air. With restless slaves, growing food prices, and ruins scattered everywhere, it is impossible to tell if the city will be able to recover from the Storm King's wrath. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. The enslaved city. Uh-oh. Koltaba originated as little more than a humble fishing village, whose foundation date is unclear. There are some ruins that might be from the period of ancient Middle Egypt pharaohs, which would mean ponies have lived there for over 1,000 years. The village only rose to prominence after the Kingdom of Abyssinia seized the lands during Queen Pakuna's reign in 10 ALB. 2 years later, she chose Kaltaba as the location of the provincial capital, which would be the residence of the governor of Mandalusia. The small village would quickly grow to become a notable regional port town. When Saudi Arabia invaded Abyssinia, Mandalusia was the first region their soldiers managed to take. While they managed to push deeper into the feline kingdom, they suffered from severe attrition in the mountains. In 672 ALB, a peace treaty was signed where Abyssinia became a tributary of Saudi Arabia, and Mandalusia was ceded to them. Soon after, Koltaba became the capital of a newly established autonomous region, which would be dominated by Saudi Arabian merchants. a new trade route was established, with countless ships sailing from the north and unloading their goods, which was taken by the caravans across the desert to Cluj town, and then to Farsha or Timbuktu, and vice versa. This was the golden age of Mandalusia. Kultaba grew to a considerable size, and wealthy merchants funded the construction of Madrash and the great Watrazi temple. Soon the city became the heart of a new Mandalusian culture, which mixed Mare Egyptian language, culture, and religion with the Saudi Arabian ones. Good times do not last forever. After the Claomonic restoration, 901 ALB, Abyssinia ceased to pay tribute to the ever-weakening and decadent Saudi Arabia. Unrest grew in Mare Egypt, cultivated in the Birthday Revolt. I love that that's the name. In 987 ALB, where the independent kingdom of Mare Egypt was established. The two kingdoms both had claims on Mandalusia, which remained loyal to Saudi Arabia. So chaos ensued. According to Mare Egypt, Abyssinian troops illegally crossed into Mandalusia, which prompted a swift mobilization response from the ponies, who wanted to save their fellow estranged Mare Egypts from the feline slavers. Thus, in 988 ALB, the brutal Mandalusian War was fought and ended at a stalemate, with Mandalusia partitioned between the two kingdoms. A ceasefire was signed, which has lasted to this day, but is an uneasy peace, as both sides, and especially the local Mandalusians, are unhappy with it. Kotaba is a powder keg ready to explode, as the locals despise their feline overlords, who have enslaved thousands of ponies. Wow, we sound so nice. Thank goodness, we're so chill. We have more on. So we have the Clawmic dynasty, which is both the Hermanic and the non-aligned. Interesting. The angry slaves are communist, and the Catweed dynasty, the other one, is supremacist. Interesting. Okay. Interesting stuff going on. We also have a company currently, which has no description, but has some interesting effect. I don't know if I've even played with coal before, to be honest. I don't know what it does. Guys, I actually haven't played it before in a while. At least Nabat base game, or the only version I've played is Kaiserreich, and Kaiserreich doesn't use the coal system. So actually I've played Kaiserreich and Old World Blues. I think that's the only mods I've played normally since coming back, and those don't use the coal, so I don't know what coal does. I'll have to look into it, or someone will have to explain it, because I don't know what coal does. But we have a slave-based economy, which is, the effects are alright. I mean, they're basically like a worse partial mobilization. Obviously they're effects-wise, it's kind of mid. Also, melancholic, -1 daily political power. We're already apparently getting a whole bunch from other stuff too. Sheesh, we are not having political power for a while this run. Gomez Mako, I'm just going to call him Gomez, of the House of Clawan, has a heritage of over 1,000 years, so expectations have always been high for him, especially as he is the grandson of the famous Queen Mawadra II, who restored the dynasty to the throne of Abyssinia. He was raised in the royal palace of Panthera, and his father, King Mawkonnen, ensured he was given the best education money could buy, which prepared him for his future as his heir. As a student, he was proficient, even if lacking in passion, and excelled at economics, mathematics, and history. Already at a young age, he fell in love with his cousin, Morticia. Guys, remember this, based on medieval periods. It's weird, but that's normal for medieval nations throughout blah 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 blah, moving on. But was unable to marry her for a long time due to cousin marriage being strongly frowned upon. Never mind, apparently in this kingdom that's actually frowned upon. So, this guy is just very messed up, even for this kingdom's normally medieval practices. Ouch. Okay, didn't expect that, especially by his father. When Mawkonnen died in 998 ALB, Gomez was more than ready to succeed him, and with his royal authority was able to immediately marry Morticia. Okay, this is an interesting situation to start with. Okay, sure. I did not expect this. I was kind of okay with it when I thought it was just a weird royal kingdom thing, but now that I know that's weird even for them, this is odd to read. But he was fully aware of the many potential problems that threatened Abyssinia and planned to deal with them before it was too late. Fortunately, black cats aren't known for their luck. As soon as news of the Storm King's rapid conquest arrived, Gomez began preparing defenses and building up the royal army. But despite his best efforts, he had no counter to his airships, and Abyssinian cities fell one by one. In the end, when Panthera burned and he had lost a part of his right ear, he finally surrendered, offering his crown to the Storm King. But just as quickly as he had arrived, the Storm King left, leaving behind a devastated, impoverished kingdom. Okay. Good. I had to move my mic because it was blocking part of the description. With his dreams shattered and his kingdom on the brink of collapse, Gomez's mental state worsened rapidly as he was unable to cope with the stress. Time will tell if he's able to recover and face his daunting challenges. Time will tell. We have a legacy of the storm. The Storm King's recent invasion completely devastated our country. His armies burned down and looted many cities. Despite our best efforts to defend them, we tried hiding our treasures from him, but he was no fool and managed to find them, taking everything valuable for himself. Afterwards, he left us alone to lick our wounds. Now there's nothing left to do but rebuild. The unequal treaty. After the Clomanic restoration, Queen Merdra signed a treaty with the Kingdom of Wingbardi, which, according to the Abyssinian version of the treaty, stipulated that the Abyssinia temporarily leased the island of Pergia in exchange for developmental aid and trade agreements. However, it was later discovered the Wingbardian version of the treaty claimed the island was permanently transferred to them, which soured relations. Things became even worse when the Storm King sacked and burned Abyssinia. Rather than a potential ally on Zebrica, Abyssinia now appeared more like a weak and helpless country. Wingbardi took advantage of this, seizing the port city of Katrin, forcing King Gomez to sign another treaty. This acknowledged the recent seizure as legal, called the Katrin Cession, established a demilitarized zone around it in Katkat, and gave further privileges to the Wingbardian businesses, including exclusive mining rights in Katkat. While the economic benefits from the Wingbardian activity, most of the populace resents the treaty. Yeah, there are some economic benefits, but mostly I just want the land back. Slave unrest. Oh, that's some terrible effects. Oh god. After Queen Merdra II outlawed feline slavery, famously proclaiming all cats to be free, slave owners exploited a legal loophole which did not explicitly forbid enslavement of other races. Over the century, hundreds of thousands of slaves have been acquired from abroad, either through trade or force. These slaves are, for the most part, ponies, donkeys, zebras, and horses. Following the Storm King's invasion, many of them rose up against their owners, starting a spiral of deadly violence that could escalate out of control. We also have a paralyzed government, which is bad, really bad as well. The King of Abyssinia has traditionally been an absolute monarchy, ruled by decree. However, King Gomez's poor mental state has resulted in the government being left completely idle, unable to do anything without the king's approval or command. Normally this would be enough of a problem, but in the current time of crisis, decisions are urgently needed. Yet, no one makes them. As a result, Abyssinia is becoming increasingly chaotic, and the aristocrats are beginning to question Gomez's ability to rule. And, of course, we also have a risk of famine, because why not? The Abyssinia Peninsula is a dry region largely unsuited for agriculture, with many cats in the countryside still living as pastoralists. Worse still, arable land in the highlands is used for growing cash crops for export, such as coffee. As cats are also obligate carnivores, the rest of the arable land is used for cattle fodder. Before the Storm King's invasion, Abyssinia was perfectly capable of importing tons of meat from abroad. But with an empty sacked treasury and ever-increasing internal instability, these imports have almost completely ceased. Food stocks are slowly but surely becoming completely empty. If nothing is done, starvation will threaten almost the entire populace. Wow, seems like things are going quite well. You know, I don't see a problem with this, you know. Seems like things are absolutely, you know, fine. Just, you know, just fine. You know, I'm sure everything's gonna be okay. What is this? Okay, I'm gonna have to, like, watch a tutorial on some of the new stuff. I don't know what either of these are. Or this, to be honest. I don't know what any of those 3 items are, to be honest. And I don't know what gold's used for. So, yeah. I'm learning that I know a lot less about certain things. Oh, there's a guide to Abyssinian names? Okay, I'll have to read that. Okay. Okay, for now, I'll just set it to this. If you hear a real cat meowing, that would be my cat, who has decided to sit in a window nearby. So, don't worry if you hear a cat. That is fine. I'm gonna turn off all this for now, because I don't know what I'll need. I'm gonna turn off all this for now, because I don't know what I'll need. I will keep those, because I'm gonna look at that. I need iron for stuff. Just ships, though. How much? I'm just gonna not build many ships for now. That'll be fine. Okay. Actually, this is that's the one I want to actually use for my cat chill. To keep that, the rest of you I'm gonna make into Crown Guard units because they're better. Hopefully I'll eventually get enough to actually use those units. I'll keep that one though, just because it's always nice to have a Mountaineer. Hopefully I'll be able to, actually I should go ahead and start that, and start that, and I will, probably want lots of guns, because I'm very behind, so I guess I'm going to leave that be for now. A guide to Abyssinian names. Unlike in some cultures, there are no surnames in Abyssinia. Every cat has 2 names, a personal name assigned to a kittens at birth, and a patronymic or matronymic name. Male offspring redeems a patronymic name, the personal name of their father, while female offspring receive a matronymic, the personal name of their mother. This means lineage is difficult to trace by name alone. In addition, it means some cats can have double names, with the personal name and given name of a parent being identical, though this is rare. Let us have an example. A male tomcat named Mewald Garfield, a married female lady cat named Grinelkin Erlin. They have 2 kittens, one male and one female. They gave the male one the personal name Nermal, and the female one is given the name Hissa. Thus, the full name of the male kitten is now Nermal Mewaldi, because it has the male name. And while the female kitten is known as Hissa Grimelkin, it has the female mother's name. It is important to note that this concept of families and dynasties still exists in Abyssinian culture. However, only noble and royal families have distinct names, which are never included as part of their individual full name. For example, one could say Gomez Mawkonnen of the House of Clawin, but calling him Gomez Clawin is wrong, and a diplomatic faux pas, often done by Wingbardian diplomats who are unfamiliar with the Abyssinian culture. Names are traditionally recorded by Bastis, priests, and stored in temple archives. However, the expansion of state bureaucracy has meant the state itself now keeps track of the names of its citizenry. That does explain things. That actually makes things make a lot more sense. I was kind of confused about some of the naming, to be honest. Baptism in a nutshell. Baptism is a name commonly used by outsiders to refer to the traditional racial faith of the Abyssinian cats, centered around Bast, a legendary 4-legged sapient cat who allegedly overthrew the tyrant king Anubis, of ancient Egypt, and sacrificed herself to create the Abyssinian race. As This was the end of the Bast's ninth and final life. She is considered to be a dead deity. Baptism, therefore, focuses on following her way of life, rather than playing for salvation or fearing divine retribution. That's actually very fascinating. Okay. The core principle of baptism is the cycle of rebirth, where a cat can live 9 lives before facing eternal oblivion and a non-existence. Okay, jeez. Bast escaped this fate through achieving everlasting metaphysics extensive by eliminating desire and the self. Baptists thus seek to emulate her by purifying their minds in a similar manner. They do not believe that animals, such as horses, as house cats, are capable of this, and see sapience as Bast's gift that they must use to liberate themselves from suffering and nothingness. Religion has a priesthood who maintains isolated temples that are used for worship and mediation. The core function of a priest is teaching others to live like Bast did and help them achieve enlightenment. There are few, if any, Baptists who are not Abyssinian cats, due to the focus on Bast's relationship with her creatures. Those non-cats who do follow Bast's way of life do so hoping to achieve similar salvation, seeking to live as virtuously as her. There are several unorthodox variants of baptism, which have few followers. They interpret the legend of Bast's life differently. Some even claim that she still exists and actively intervenes in temporal affairs like a regular god. When they are considered heretics, they are not actively persecuted most of the time. Interesting. Shouldn't all cats have spent their 9 lives by now? There's nothing we can do. With no political decisions being made, it is hard to take political actions, let alone have the nation focus on anything. I find that hilarious that they actually have that in the focus tree, that we can't focus on anything because we literally don't have a focus. That's hilarious. But I think this will be where we end this episode before we get started on the main thing. We'll go ahead and end here. I will see you, hopefully, soon this time. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.